Hello, how's it going? My name is Australian. This video is going to be about how to play the Spider Aggro deck. So the Spider Aggro deck is a great, simple, and cheap starter deck that only requires you to buy one new champion, since you get 2 copies of Elise for free when you start playing the game. At the time of this recording, Spiders has a 52% win rate, which is great for climbing ladder since you really only need a deck that has greater than 50% win rate. Before we continue on, if you find any of this information useful, a like or subscribe would be much appreciated. Anyways, let's get into it. So the first thing I want to talk about is how this deck is structured. There's 3 types of cards in this deck. There's the aggro units, burn units, and burn spells. The aggro units are, for example, things like we have Legion Rearguard, Precious Pet, Arachnid Horror. Aggro units are essentially just units that you want to place down and try to go for face. They're cheap, and usually they're 3 2s or 2 1s in this deck. Next, we have the burn units. Burn units are some sort of mechanics that allows you to go for face. So for example, we have Legion Saboteur, which deals 2-1. We have Imperial Demolitionist, which is deal 1 to an ally and then deal 2 to the enemy Nexus. Doom Beast, which is also deal 2 to face. Grenadier, deal 1 to face when it dies, etc, etc. And lastly, we have burn spells. Those are just spells that just straight up damage the face. So I think we're running 2 in this deck. We have got Noxian Fervor and we have Decimate. The last thing I want to talk about is we don't really have draw in this deck, but there's one draw card, which is actually the Stalking Shadows. So what the Stalking Shadows does is it looks through your deck, the top 4 cards, and it tries to find any sort of units. My recommendation here is usually you want to look for burn cards, and you usually want to play for Stalking Shadows after around turn 6 when the tempo starts slowing down. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is the strategy for this and like what is the win condition. So there's 2 phases for this deck. The first is to go as wide as possible, usually around about turn 5 or 6, when the enemy is attacking. 90% of the time, you don't actually want to block. I'll go into details later about when to use a blocker, but that's after about turn 6, you want to switch to going to the burn phase. I also want to talk about how to use Elise. Now, I see a lot of beginners where they think they need to level Elise as the win condition, but that's actually not true at all. We don't need to level Elise at all to win, and most of the time we won't be leveling Elise. You can just think of using Elise as a good 2-drop and just play her like that. But if you do get lucky and you do level the Elise, and you also have like a board of 2, 3 spiders, you can also drop a Frenzied Skitter, which will usually drop the opponent's units below 3 damage, so they can't be fearsome blockers anymore, and so that means you can get essentially an open attack on face, which will do like 10 to 15 damage to face, because Skitter also gives +1 to all spiders. Okay, so tips and tricks about when to actually use blockers. 1, obviously, if you're going to take lethal damage, you want to use blockers. If you can trade a unit 1 for 1, especially if it's a value trade, such as trading a 4-3 into a 3-2, that's usually good. Most of the times I probably wouldn't even take that trade though. And then another thing is if you get challenged or if the enemy has lifesteal, and this is a pretty good trick, is you can put a blocker on that you're going to sacrifice for the Noxian Fervor anyways, and then Noxian Fervor that unit. So if that unit has lifesteal and doesn't have Overwhelm, it's going to cancel the attack. And because it cancels the attack, they don't get that lifesteal. And lifesteal for you is devastating. If the enemy gets off a lifesteal, usually that means they win. So lastly is just watch out for counters, especially just pay attention to how much mana they have, and especially what kind of regions they're playing. So for example, if they're playing Shadow Isles, then you know that they have, if they have 2 mana left, then they have Vile Feast, and if they have Vile Feast, they could potentially counter your Noxian Fervor. So yeah, that's kind of it for the strategy for how to play this aggro deck. And next, let's get into a game as an example. Okay, so we have these 3 units are pretty good. What I could do is I could drop. So I'm attacking on odds. So I was thinking I could attack, place this, go for face. Maybe I want to do this. What's the enemy? Zerath. Okay, so I want to get rid of this since this is a draw and I don't really need it until later. I could have actually gotten rid of this card too. Maybe that was actually a mistake. Okay, cool. So because we got Elise, I was actually going to play the Legion Rearguard. Because we drew Elise, I'm actually going to play this Spider. We just want to go for face here, get the free 2 damage. Perfect. So since next turn, we're gonna get 3 mana. I'm gonna play Legion Rearguard plus these 2. So these are gonna be 4 1s. And that's gonna be 8, 11. That's gonna be a lot. Well, that's a lot of damage.
Reporting in.
So they only have 2 mana left. They can block. They're probably gonna block my Elise. But that's totally fine. They are going to be taking a lot of damage here.
You must suffer long.
They might block this, but they're probably gonna block my Elise. Okay. So yeah, so now they're at 6 HP, which puts us almost into decimate range. So next round, they're pretty much going to be in decimate range. The next attacking round, sorry. If they have Zerath here, okay, good. Perfect. Easy surrender. Anyways, yeah, so that's kind of like how you play the deck. That was a fast game, so why don't we play another one? We have Yasuo, Leona. Okay, wow, this is a great hand. I'm gonna try to mulligan for another spider if I can. That works as well. Because, again, we have the Elise, we're going to play with the Precious Pet first instead of this. We're actually going to save this. Usually if the enemy is able to build a board, we want this 1-drop to be able to hit the face, even if we can't get through their board. We're attacking on evens, which is actually good because we get to play our Elise and then get that 1 extra unit.
Ours is the one true light. Punish transgressions.
We're not going to block here because we can't get this trade. So instead, what we're going to try to do is we're going to try to go wide with our board. So my 2 options are, we can either play these, the 2 1-drops. We can play House Spider. House Spider gives us 2 units because it's going to summon a 1/1 Spiderling. I think I want to put the Elise down here. The Elise is going to generate a 1 unit. And this way, I get to level my Elise. So next round, I'm going to play the House Spider. And I'll probably play the Legion Rearguard. And that's going to give me 3 spiders. Which levels Elise? Okay, so we're getting some of our burn cards, but we don't need them just yet. He's still a little high. Ideally, we want to be switching over to burn when they're about 8 to 10. Health isn't a great indicator. We most likely actually want to look at the tempo of the board. Okay, perfect. So when Elise levels
Follow
up,
the horizon.
we're not gonna block. We could block this 2-1, but I don't think it's actually worth it. We're just gonna take it. 2 damage is nothing. We're just gonna take that.
Just need a second.
So Elise is gonna level now.
Smooth as silk.
So I can challenge 2 units here, and that means he takes 9 damage to face. Actually, he can't block. The only thing that he can do is block this. So I think if I do this, that way it forces the 1-3 to block the 3-2, which will trade this. He can't block anything else, and then I also get this trade as well. He might have a stun, or he might actually just like give this unit +1/+1. He's gonna take a lot of damage. So he's at 5 health, which is in range for, we can essentially Doom Beast and Noxus Fervor. We could, so it's gonna stun my Elise, which I'm fine with. We could go for lethal. Well, sorry, we don't have lethal, but we could go for more damage, but I want to keep developing the board. So we're gonna do 2 damage here, and then next round we're going to... Next round, like, well, in 2 rounds we have many ways of getting lethal. Okay, so that's another 2 damage to face.
Sleep is for the guilty.
So he has 4 damage. He can... So because he has Yasuo down, he can essentially stun any of these units, and that deals 2 damage because of Yasuo's spell. So because of that, I actually am just going to decimate. And he might have a deny actually, but that could have been a mistake because he could have had to deny, but I don't think he usually runs deny Yasuo. But anyways, that's how you play this deck.